Sometimes silence can feel heavier than noise. Out here, it pressed on me like the weight of unspoken thoughts, every creak of the tower, every rustle in the woods below, reminding me that solitude can both heal and haunt. That's what the forest had become to me, a mirror that didn't lie. The isolation of Lookout Tower 7 had become my sanctuary. 3 months into my assignment at Shoshone National Forest in Wyoming, I'd grown accustomed to the steady groan of the wooden beams, the endless green stretching toward the horizon, and the ritual of scanning for smoke. After my divorce, the solitude wasn't just comforting, it was medicine. My coffee mug steamed beside the observation desk as I picked up the binoculars for my afternoon scan. The July heat baked the room despite open windows. Sweat clung to my back as I muttered to myself, "Section 4, clear," and logged the entry in my worn notebook. Wake, check weather, record, scan, repeat. That rhythm had become my life. Visitors were rare this deep into the forest. Most hikers stayed near the park's main trails. The radio crackled, startling me so hard I nearly spilled the coffee. Static hissed through the speaker, then a fractured voice broke through, distorted, urgent. "Alan, danger coming." I snatched the handset. "This is Tower 7, go ahead." The transmission broke apart, words scattered by interference. "Not what seems, they're coming, prepare." Then nothing but static. My pulse pounded as I tried every channel. Silence. That voice, whoever it was, had known my name. Only headquarters and the other towers could know that. I called headquarters. "Shoshone Forestry Services," a woman answered. "This is Alan Peterson at Tower 7. I just got a strange transmission. Someone called me by name." She hesitated, then said, "No similar reports. Probably a prank, Alan." Happens sometimes. I wanted to believe that. God, I wanted to. But that night, when the wind went still and the tower creaked like something breathing, I wasn't so sure. Twice I woke thinking I'd heard footsteps on the stairs, soft, deliberate. Each time the stairwell was empty. By morning the forest looked calm again. But the quiet felt expectant. Morning light bled through the clouds, and I tried convincing myself the unease from last night was just leftover nerves. Coffee helped for a while. I told myself I was fine. The forest was calm, the air steady, nothing to fear but my own thoughts. But sometimes the woods go quiet, not from peace, but from anticipation. By midday, the silence felt too deep. I checked my weather feed. Clear skies predicted for days, yet to the northwest a cluster of clouds churned like boiling ink. My satellite phone showed no service. I hit it against my palm. Still nothing. "Perfect," I muttered. "At least the radio still works." At 4:30 p.m., something moved in my peripheral vision. A figure. Sector 6. I steadied the binoculars and focused on a narrow clearing 2 miles out. Someone walked directly through the dense forest. Not a trail, not even a game path, heading straight toward me. Not a lost wanderer either. Their stride was deliberate, confident. Wrong. Protocol demanded I assist anyone in distress. So I gathered water, medical supplies, and readied the guest cot. But my gut twisted tighter the closer the figure came. Clouds rolled in faster than any storm should, swallowing the late sun. By the time the man reached the base of the tower, daylight was nearly gone. I switched on the exterior lights. He was of average height, dark hair, clean clothes, too clean for bushwhacking through that terrain. No pack, no mud. My hand hovered over the radio, but instinct said not to call it in yet. He climbed the last steps. The tower moaned, almost responding to him. 3 sharp knocks. I took a breath and opened the door. "Evening," I said evenly. "You're a long way from any trail." He smiled weakly. "Got lost. Been wandering for days." His clothes told a different story. "Come in," I said, stepping back. "You must be exhausted." He entered smoothly, too smoothly. His eyes swept the room, lingering not on the water or cot, but the radio. Something about him felt rehearsed, and that was the moment I knew this wasn't just a hiker. Something else had walked into my tower. He moved like he belonged there. I watched his steps. No hesitation, no fatigue, no shiver despite the cold wind sweeping in through the door. His voice was hoarse but careful, like each word had been practiced in front of a mirror. "I'm Alan," I said finally, breaking the tension. "Fire watcher for this sector." "You're lucky to stumble across a tower out here," he nodded, though his eyes stayed on my equipment. John Miller," he said after a pause too long to be natural. I handed him a water bottle. "Here, you look like you could use it." He raised it, wetting his lips but not drinking. "Thanks. Hard to keep track of time out there." 4 days, maybe 5. 4 days in the wild and not a speck of real dirt on him. His stubble looked only a day old. I tried to sound casual. "You're in good shape for someone lost that long." He gave a faint grin. "Guess I got lucky." I pointed toward the food on the table. "Eat something. It'll help." He shook his head, gaze fixed again on the radio set. "That thing still work?" "Usually." Signal's been odd lately. When I reached for the handset, he stepped subtly between me and the radio. "No need to bother anyone," he said, voice soft but firm. "I'll leave at first light." "It's protocol," I replied, brushing past him. "Headquarters needs to know who's up here." Static exploded the moment I powered the unit. Every channel, nothing but white hiss. Miller gave that strange half-smile again. Probably just mountain interference. Right, I murmured, not believing a word. He wandered, touching my maps, my notebooks. Fascinating job. All alone, night after night, just watching. It has its moments, I said, checking that my hunting knife was within reach. He turned toward me. How far is the next tower? He nodded slowly. And Tower 12? The burned one? My breath caught. That name wasn't on any public map. Get some rest, I said quietly. We'll talk in the morning. He smiled again. Yes, morning, though I don't think we have much time. The hours dragged like wet rope. Miller lay on the sleeping mat near the wood stove, eyes open, breathing even but too steady like he was pretending to sleep. I sat at my desk, pretending to work, the weight of my hunting knife cold against my thigh. At 11, I announced, I need to run the night scan. He sat up instantly, alert. I'll be in my quarters after, I added. You should rest. He nodded, too politely. Of course, Alan. Rest is important. Inside my small room, I locked the door, slipped the knife beneath my pillow, and leaned against the bunk, listening. The tower creaked inside. Miller's footsteps circled the main room. Slow, even. Every few minutes they stopped, then resumed again. I kept my breathing quiet, counting the seconds. Time blurred. The wind outside rose to a whisper, brushing against the windows like fingertips. When I finally glanced at my watch, it read midnight. I must have drifted for 5 minutes, no more, before a faint scraping sound pulled me fully awake. Metal against metal. The lock. I held my breath, moved silently toward the door. Through the thin gap at the bottom, I saw his shadow bend low, something thin and glinting in his hand. A straightened paperclip, maybe? My pulse hammered. I yanked the door open. Miller froze mid-motion, caught like a thief. What the hell are you doing? I demanded. He didn't flinch, didn't look surprised, just smiled, a slow, unnatural stretch of lips. His voice was smooth now, steady. You're not ready yet, but you will be. Ready for what? I snapped. They're coming soon. Who's coming? Before I could move closer, the tower lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then darkness. I lunged forward with my knife, but there was only empty space. The emergency lights hummed to life, bathing everything in red. Miller was gone. The only things left were the bent paperclip on the floor and the shattered padlock of my gun cabinet. He had vanished without a sound, without a way out. I tore through the tower, sweeping every corner, every shadow, calling his name into the red glow. Nothing. No open window, no ladder creak, no sound of boots descending the stairs, just the wind outside and the faint hum of my radio, alive again. Static filled the room. Beneath it, something rhythmic pulsed like breathing through the interference. I turned the dial slowly, hands shaking. The hiss shifted to a distorted whisper. "Oh, Alan, don't! Leave the tower!" The voice was mine. I froze. "Who is this?" I barked into the mic. Silence. Then the same phrase repeated, clear, urgent this time. Definitely me, but not. A recording. An echo. "Alan," the voice said again, "he isn't real. The lights aren't what they seem." The transmission cut to pure static. I slammed the switch, unplugged the cable, and still the static kept going. The radio wasn't even on anymore. That was when I noticed the smell. Burnt wood, faint but unmistakable. I spun toward the stove, cold. Then I saw it drifting from under the trap door leading to the lower storage deck. Thin gray smoke curling upward. Rifle in hand, I pulled the hatch open. Below, the air shimmered orange. My emergency supplies smoldered. Maps, spare batteries, notebooks, half melted. Someone had lit them deliberately. "Miller!" I shouted into the heat. My voice cracked, swallowed by the hiss of burning plastic. A faint tapping sound echoed from outside, rhythmic, deliberate. I moved to the balcony. There, on the tree line, stood a figure. The same silhouette I'd seen in the clearing days ago. Tall, still, watching. Not Miller. Taller. The shape's outline shimmered like heat waves, as if it didn't fully belong in the same air as everything else. Then came the lights. Far off in the direction of Tower 12, pale beams flickered through the trees, pulsing in patterns. 3 short, 1 long, 3 short again. Morse code, SOS. But each pulse seemed to bend the air around it, like the forest was breathing with the light. I backed away, gripping the railing. The static on the dead radio whispered once more, "They're already inside!" And behind me, on the stairwell, a new set of footsteps began to climb. The footsteps creaked closer, measured, deliberate. I raised my rifle toward the stairwell, bracing the barrel against my shoulder. "Stop right there!" I shouted. The steps paused, then continued. Slow, unhurried. When the figure finally emerged into the red light of the tower's lantern, I nearly dropped the rifle. It was me. Same uniform, same torn sleeve, same faint scar above the eyebrow. Only the eyes were different. Flat, glassy, reflecting nothing. He tilted his head. "You shouldn't have come back. What the hell are you?" I demanded. "I told you in the last cycle," he said calmly. "This place loops because of you. They built it around your choices." My mind raced. "You're the one on the radio." He nodded once. "The fragments of me that resist. You can't stop the reset this time." "I found the cave," I said, watching for movement. "The blind spot," the journal said. "The cave buys time," he interrupted, "not freedom. They study what you'll do when you think you've broken out." I took a step forward. "Then tell me how to end it." He smiled, an empty, mechanical stretch of lips. "End it? You already did." "You're just watching the replay." Behind him, the horizon flared white. A sound like distant thunder rolled through the valley. He turned toward the window. "There! Tower 12! That's where it always collapses." I followed his gaze. The trees beyond were flickering frames, skipping like a corrupted video file. The air shimmered, colors bleeding wrong. The other me spoke again, softer this time. "You wrote the journal to remind yourself, but you never remembered what came after. They used the tower to anchor the next loop. Burn it before dawn." "How?" I asked. He looked down at his hands. They were fading, dissolving into particles of light. "It's already too late. They've started the 6th cycle." The world shuddered. Every sound flattened into a single low tone. My reflection in the tower's window rippled and blinked before I did. When I turned back, the other me was gone. Outside, the forest shimmered like heat above asphalt. My radio clicked on by itself. "Cycle 6 initiated," said Kevin's voice, only now beneath his tone. I heard dozens of others overlapping, all saying the same words. I stared at the journal in my hand. The ink on the last page was still wet. A new line had appeared beneath my final entry. "Cycle 6! He remembers." The tower lights flickered, then went dark. The blackout swallowed everything. For a few seconds, I stood in perfect silence, listening to the pulse of my own heartbeat. Then a faint hum started up again, the generator struggling back to life. Weak, uneven. I didn't wait for the lights. My fingers found the emergency matches by instinct. One strike. A flare of orange light painted the cramped cabin walls, and in that dim glow, I saw the journal lying open on the desk. The last line had changed again. "Burn the anchor." That was all. The meaning came slowly, but with crushing certainty. The tower itself, my shelter, my prison, the center of every reset. I took a deep breath, grabbed my fuel canister from the corner, and began splashing it along the wooden floorboards. The smell hit me hard, acrid, familiar, the same chemical scent that lingered in every nightmare version of this place. The journal's pages fluttered as a draft swept through the broken window. Outside, the forest shimmered faintly, like light reflecting off invisible glass. Things were shifting again, the edges of this fabricated world bending in preparation for another cycle. I hesitated by the doorway. My mind screamed to stop. Burning the tower meant destroying the only stable point I had left. But if the other me was right, that stability was their tool, their control mechanism. "Burn the anchor," I whispered again. I lit the first match and dropped it. Flames spread fast, too fast. The dry timber caught with a whoosh that nearly blew the breath from my lungs. Heat roared upward, devouring the stairwell. The radio sparked alive through the noise. "Alan!" came the voice, mine again fractured across static. "Don't let them rewrite! Reach the cave!" The loop collapses only if you survive the collapse. I slung my pack over my shoulder, the journal safely inside, and sprinted down the stairs 2 at a time. Smoke chased me, thick and choking. By the time I reached the bottom, fire had swallowed the upper level. The exit door was already radiating heat. I kicked it open. Cool night air slammed into me. Behind, Tower 12 burned like a signal flare against the sky, orange, gold, and white. Sparks spiraled upward, swallowed by clouds. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw figures moving within the flames, silhouettes of rangers, of myself, of faces I couldn't name. Then they vanished in the collapsing roar. I stumbled into the tree line and looked back one final time. The tower tilted, groaned, and fell inward, collapsing in a shower of sparks. The forest trembled. The shimmer that had haunted the horizon faded. The distortion flattened. For the first time in what felt like forever, the night sky looked real. Stars held steady, no flicker, no glitching haze. I sank to my knees, coughing, lungs raw from smoke. Had it worked? Somewhere far off, a low tone pulsed once, faint and fading like the heartbeat of something immense winding down. I waited. The tone didn't return. For the first time, the forest was still. I stood, gripped the compass, and turned east. The journal pressed against my chest like a promise. Whatever waited beyond the trees, the loop, if not broken, was cracked wide open, and through that fracture, maybe, freedom could finally bleed in. I didn't look back again. The burning tower cast enough light to follow the narrow trail leading deeper into the forest. Smoke followed me, mixing with fog that crept low to the ground. Each step felt heavier, the silence around me thicker than before, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The journal's cover was warm against my chest. I hadn't noticed before, but faint lines had appeared on its surface symbols, carved or burned in as if by unseen hands. I tried not to stare. The words from the voice echoed in my mind. Reach the cave! Survive the collapse! It took over an hour of climbing through dense, uneven terrain before I recognized the slope leading toward the blind zone. The air here hummed with a faint vibration, the same feeling I remembered from my first discovery of the cave, a distortion in the senses, like standing too close to high-voltage wires. I crouched low as I neared the narrow fissure between moss-covered rocks. The opening looked smaller than before, though I couldn't tell if it was real or a trick of my fear. I shoved my pack through first, then squeezed after it, scraping my shoulders against cold stone. Inside, the cave welcomed me with its strange metallic stillness. My flashlight beam cut through floating dust, glinting off the steel box I'd hidden days or cycles ago. It was still there, exactly as I'd left it. My pulse raced as I knelt before it. I flipped open the lid. Inside lay my old notes, a broken watch, and a small recorder I didn't remember placing there. Its red light blinked faintly. I pressed play. Static filled the cave for several seconds, followed by my own voice, hoarse, urgent, terrified. If you're hearing this, it means you broke the anchor. Good. But the blind zone isn't safe anymore. They'll adapt. You have one chance, the boundary to the east. Cross it before sunset. Their reach ends there. I froze. The message ended with a sound, footsteps, echoing faintly before the tape cut off. That sound wasn't from the recording. It was coming from the cave entrance. I killed the flashlight. Darkness folded over me like water. My breathing slowed until I could barely hear it. Another sound, a voice this time soft and almost curious. Alan? It was Kevin's voice, but wrong. There was no echo, no human inflection, only mimicry, like an animal testing a sound it didn't understand. I held my breath. The faint shuffle of boots came closer, then silence. For a long minute, nothing moved. The cave seemed to hold its shape again, undisturbed. I waited until the shaking in my hands subsided before I switched the flashlight back on. The entrance was empty. But across the cave floor, footprints led halfway in and stopped. The last print was a few inches from my own. I swallowed hard and forced myself to move. I sealed the box, stuffed the journal inside my pack, and crawled back into the night air. Outside, the forest had changed again. The fire's glow was gone, as though it had never existed. The compass needle spun once, then settled firmly east. For the first time since the cycle began, I felt something close to clarity. The message was clear: reach the highway before sunset. I started walking east, every step echoing like a countdown. The morning sun filtered through a haze that felt too still to be natural. Every ray of light hung suspended in the air, as if reluctant to move. My boots sank into damp soil that smelled faintly metallic, and somewhere above, the sound of distant thunder rolled without clouds to make it. The journal's pages had begun to fade. Whole paragraphs that once warned of them were now smudged gray, the ink dissolving like the words no longer belonged in this version of the world. I caught myself tracing over a phrase that refused to vanish completely. Memory is their first weapon. By midday, the trees thinned. The terrain leveled out into a stretch of pale grass, almost silver in the strange light. I stopped when I saw it, what looked like a cabin standing alone near a dry creek bed. It hadn't been there before. For a long moment I considered detouring around it, but curiosity, or maybe the faint pull of recognition, won. The cabin's door was ajar. Inside, dust motes hung in the air like ash. The furniture was sparse, arranged with the same precision I'd seen in the tower, every object squared to the walls, every angle exact. On the table sat an old radio, different model, older casing, cracked dials. I hesitated, then powered it on. The speaker hissed to life. Then came the voice, mine again, but slower, quieter, like an echo from a long way off. You're close now. Don't stop. They're adjusting the perimeter. The copies will converge soon. Static swallowed the rest. I spun toward the window. Out in the silver grass, 3 figures were approaching from the tree-line rangers, moving with that same mechanical precision, each one identical to Kevin, each step in perfect rhythm. I turned off the radio and crouched low. My reflection stared back from a dusty mirror beside the door. My own face looked pale, gaunt, but wrong in a subtle way. My left eye flickered, the pupil contracting too sharply before returning to normal. I looked closer. There was a faint seam along my jaw. No! The word slipped out before I could stop it. All 3 turned their heads in unison toward the cabin. Something inside me broke. I grabbed the rifle and bolted out the back, crashing through the brittle remains of a fence. The forest swallowed me again, branches clawing at my sleeves. The pounding in my chest wasn't just fear anymore. It was realization. The loop hadn't just studied me. It had replaced pieces of me. Every memory I thought I owned, every ache, every scar might have been written by them. Still, I ran. Behind me, the synchronized footsteps began again. I forced myself eastward toward the faint shimmer on the horizon where the barrier once stood. The air ahead pulsed, bending the trees into impossible angles. The fracture was opening again. And this time, I wasn't sure if what stepped through would still be me. The world ahead rippled like water seen through heat. Each step closer to the fracture made the air shimmer harder until I could barely see the trees. My breath came out in ragged bursts. The hum grew louder, no longer a sound but a vibration threading through my ribs. Behind me, the synchronized footsteps grew faint, then stopped. I turned once, expecting to see the three identical Kevins still advancing. But the clearing was empty, not gone, just erased, as if that section of forest had been folded out of existence. The fracture was widening. Thin arcs of blue light traced the edges, crackling like static across glass. I could see movement inside, shadows flitting behind a veil, forming and unforming into shapes I recognized only as almost human. "Douglas!" I called into the distortion. A voice answered, not from within, but from everywhere at once. "Alan! You shouldn't have come!" His eyes glowed faintly, the same unnatural hue as the pulsing light from Tower 12. "You disappeared," I said. "You left everything behind." He smiled sadly. "I didn't disappear. I crossed over. What's on the other side?" He glanced behind him where shadows bent into patterns I couldn't fully comprehend. "Something that isn't supposed to be here, and something we brought with us by accident." The towers were never just watch points. They were part of the grid that holds this side stable. But when they shut down Tower 12, they broke the alignment. I struggled to understand. "You mean we opened something?" Douglas nodded. "And it's learning, mimicking. Every time it copies one of us, it gets closer to understanding how to stay." The air rippled violently. Through the fracture, I saw flashes of scenes from my life. The divorce, the forest, the stranger's grin, all flickering like images on film. "You can still close it," Douglas said, "but not from here." "How?" He reached out a trembling hand. "Step through. Finish what we started before the copies replace everything." The hum grew deafening. My skin prickled as light wrapped around my arms. I hesitated, torn between instinct and reason. Behind me, the forest began to distort, colors bleeding like ink in water. The trees bent backward and distant voices started calling my name, dozens of them, all in my voice. Douglas's expression softened. "You're already part of it, Alan." You might as well see it through. For a long breath, I stood at the edge of the fracture, feeling the pull from both worlds. Then, without another word, I stepped forward. Light engulfed everything, sound, thought, time, until there was nothing left but the echo of my heartbeat. And then silence. Cold, infinite silence. Somewhere deep inside it, I heard my own voice whisper, "Welcome back." When sensation returned, it came like a slow tide, the feeling of breath, the weight of air, the dull ache in my limbs. I opened my eyes to light so pale it looked drained of color. The forest was still there, but wrong. Each tree leaned slightly inward, their trunks bending as though drawn toward a single unseen center. The sky shimmered a dull gray, and the air hummed softly, alive with static. I was standing on a ridge overlooking a valley that should not exist. Tower 12 rose below me, rebuilt, pristine, its metal frame gleaming as if freshly constructed. The pulse of blue light that had once radiated from its beacon now beat steadily from within its core, slow and rhythmic like a heartbeat. I descended the slope carefully. The soil felt spongy underfoot, almost breathing. At the base, the world bent in on itself, faint echoes of voices murmuring through the wind. When I reached the tower's entrance, the door opened soundlessly before I could touch it. Inside, the control room was bright and spotless, every instrument humming in perfect synchronization. The air smelled faintly of ozone and pine. "Alan!" a voice said. I turned. Douglas stood near the console, though his form wavered slightly at the edges, as if the world hadn't finished drawing him. "You made it," he said. "Not everyone does." "What is this place?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "The Reflection," he said simply. "A version of the forest rebuilt from memory and light. It exists between frequencies, created when the towers began resonating out of sync. When they lost control, this overlay took shape." I glanced at the instruments. The readings made no sense. Numbers cycling too fast, coordinates looping endlessly. Douglas stepped closer. "They call this place home now. The copies, the things that learn from us, the ones that wear our faces. The longer you stay, the more it reshapes you." His tone carried sorrow rather than warning. I looked at my hands. The faint seam along my jawline had deepened, tracing faintly into my neck. My fingertips shimmered faintly as if absorbing the light. "I crossed over to stop it," he said, "but the only way to close the breach is from both sides. One must stay here, stabilize the reflection. The other must go back." "Go back?" I asked. "How?" He pointed toward the observation window. Outside, the air rippled, the original forest barely visible through a shifting veil. "Find your anchor," he said softly. "Something that still belongs to you, something real enough to pull you home." Through the distortion, I saw the faint outline of Tower 7, my tower shimmering like a mirage. "That's where you started," Douglas murmured, "and where it has to end." The hum intensified, resonating through my bones. I turned to him. "What happens if I fail?" His expression darkened. "Then neither side will remember which is real." I nodded once, gripping the railing as the tower's light flared around us. The reflection shuddered, beginning to fracture again. And as everything blurred into brightness, I heard Douglas whisper one final word: "Run!" I woke on the floor of Tower 7, the air sharp with smoke and dust. The hum was gone, replaced by the creak of wood and the hiss of wind through broken glass. For a few seconds I lay there, afraid to move. My mind felt stretched thin, as though half of it was still somewhere else. When I finally stood, the room swam. Everything looked normal, but too normal. Each object perfectly where it belonged, as if staged for inspection. My maps were stacked neatly, the coffee mug unchipped, the notebook open to a clean page. Not one trace of the chaos that had consumed the tower before I crossed over. I stepped to the window. The forest shimmered under a pale morning sun. No sign of fractures, no pulsing light. Birds called in the distance. It should have been comforting, but something in the rhythm of their song felt slightly off, like a recording played a half-second out of sync. The radio clicked suddenly, making me jump. Static filled the tower before a clear, steady voice came through. "Tower 7, this is headquarters. Reading you loud and clear. Confirm status." I stared at the microphone. That voice. It wasn't the woman from before. It was me. Tower 7, the voice repeated, calmer now. "Alan, confirm status." My throat went dry. "Who is this?" I asked. Static. "Then I told you not to come back, Douglas." The sound warped, turning into a low hum that matched the pulse I'd felt in the reflection. I yanked the radio plug free, killing the transmission. The silence that followed felt alive, pressing in from all sides. I stumbled outside for air. The forest floor was damp, the scent of rain fresh, but when I looked west toward the horizon, I saw them. 3 figures standing where the trees began, still, patient, watching, the same figures that had followed me before. I raised my binoculars. The faces were blurred, indistinct, but each had my posture, my stance, my movements delayed by half a beat. "Copies! Find your acre," Douglas had said. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the journal, the one I'd carried since the first day. Only now, its pages were blank except for one line scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. "One must stay here to keep the other real." The figures began to move closer. I backed toward the tower, torn between running and defending what was left of me. My reflection in the glass door watched me move, except it didn't mirror me. It smiled when I didn't. The sky flickered once, the color draining to white. The hum returned, faint but rising. And in that trembling instant, I realized maybe I hadn't truly come back at all. The hum deepened until it pressed into my chest, vibrating through bone. I gripped the doorframe, trying to ground myself, but the world around me rippled like heat off asphalt. The forest bent inward, the trees leaning as though pulled by invisible hands. The figures, my duplicates, moved closer, their features sharpened with every step. One looked exactly like me down to the scar on my chin. Another wore the ranger uniform, spotless, the name patch reading Peterson. The third, its face kept shifting, flickering between mine and someone else's. "Douglas, stay where you are," I shouted, raising my rifle. My voice came back to me an instant later, perfectly echoed, a mockery. The copies stopped, tilting their heads in unison. Then the Douglas one spoke. "You crossed a mirror," it said, calm and level. "Now the forest remembers you twice. What do you want? To finish what you began." Behind them, the forest seemed to breathe. Branches swayed without wind. Leaves rustled with whispering words I couldn't make out. I stepped backward into the tower, but the reflection in the glass door didn't follow. It lingered, grinning, while I retreated. "Alan," the voice of Douglas said again. "The beacon wasn't calling them, it was calling you." The radio sparked to life on its own. Static roared, followed by fragments of my own voice from earlier reports. My words stitched together out of sequence. "Lights! Coming! Stay! Prepare!" Every transmission I'd logged, every note I'd spoken, replayed now through the static. The tower itself became a chamber of echoes. I turned the rifle on the reflection. "If I shoot, do you die?" The grin widened. "If you do, which one of us stops breathing?" My hand trembled. Suddenly, a flash of blue light seared across the window. The reflection flinched, distorted. From somewhere deep in the forest came the long, mournful wail of the siren again, except this time it was coming from Tower 12's direction. The reflection mouthed words I couldn't hear. Then it pressed its palm to the glass. "I didn't think! I fired!" The bullet cracked through the reflection and shattered the pane. The light burst outward, washing over the clearing in a wave that flattened sound, sight, and thought into white silence. When it faded, the copies were gone. The hum had stopped. Only my own ragged breathing filled the air. But outside the broken window, deep among the trees, faint blue lights were moving again, 3 of them circling slowly toward Tower 7. I stared through the shattered glass, heart hammering. The blue lights weaved among the pines like will-o'-the-wisps, slow and deliberate. Each pulse painted the trees in ghostly tones, turning the forest into a living sea of shadow and glow. I backed away from the window, reloading by instinct. The rifle felt heavy, heavier than before, as if gravity had doubled. My ears rang, but beneath the ringing I caught it again, voices layered and low, whispering my name from every direction. "Alan! Alan! Stay!" It wasn't the echo of the hum this time. It was closer, human. I looked toward my radio, and to my horror the voice was coming through the speakers, not static, whispers overlapping, different pitches, different accents. Some sounded like men, others like women. I twisted the volume knob to 0, but the voices kept coming. Then, amid the chaos, one cut through clear and sharp. "Alan, it's me! Don't run! Douglas!" I froze, staring at the broken window. "You're not real! Real enough," he answered, his tone steady. "You've seen both sides now. The tower isn't just a post, it's an anchor. It keeps what's on the other side from crossing, but you've cracked it." A cold realization sank through me. The beacon wasn't meant to lure you, it was meant to contain them, the ones that copy faces. You've opened the path. The blue lights drew nearer, rising above the treetops like searching eyes. I felt the floorboards tremble beneath my feet. "How do I stop it? Find the other you," Douglas said. "Only one can stay. Close the breach by ending the reflection." The air shimmered. My reflection broke in glass and all reformed in the window, smiling with that same unnatural calm. It spoke my voice perfectly. "You've kept the watch long enough, Alan. It's my turn." The forest outside shifted between worlds, each pulse distorting the sky. I raised the rifle again, sweat dripping down my temple. "If I kill you," I whispered, "what happens to me?" The reflection's grin softened into something almost pitying. "That depends," it said, "on which one of us is really standing here." The hum surged back to life, and the lights reached the tower. The tower shook as the blue lights converged, spiraling upward like a living storm. The air burned cold, frost spread across the floorboards in veins of white. I stumbled back toward the center console as the reflection stepped through the shattered glass, no longer flat, no longer contained. It was me. Every detail perfect, my breath, my movements, even the fear in my eyes. Only the smile was wrong, too calm, too certain. "You shouldn't have followed it," the other Alan said. "You were supposed to watch, not enter." "Then why call me?" I shouted above the roar. "To finish the cycle," it answered. "One leaves, one remains. That's how the forest stays whole." The floorboards cracked. The hum grew until it was a solid wall of sound. The tower's metal frame glowed faintly, alive with current. I could see through the floor layers of forest folding beneath, one reality stacked over another, each flickering like film reels out of sync. "Choose," the reflection said, "or the forest will choose for you." Behind it, figures moved within the light, other watchmen, other reflections repeating the same impossible decision. I saw Douglas among them, half in shadow, half in flame, watching with weary resignation. "You said one must stay," I yelled. "Why me?" "Because you remembered," Douglas's voice echoed, "and memory is what binds the boundary." I lifted the rifle, hands trembling. The reflection didn't move. It simply waited, calm, almost kind. The blue light pulsed once more, and for a heartbeat I saw something inside it, a vast structure beneath the forest, towers rising upside down into an endless abyss of sky. Every reflection, another world, every watcher, another keeper. I thought of the journal, the empty pages, the single line, "One must stay here to keep the other real." The hum reached its peak. My finger tightened on the trigger. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I know," said the reflection. The gunshot tore through the storm. Light swallowed everything. When sound returned, I was sitting at the console again. Morning sunlight filtered through the windows. The forest was still. The hum was gone. The radio crackled once. "Tower 7, this is headquarters. Reading you clear." "Status report?" I hesitated, staring at my reflection in the glass. It looked back, expression unreadable. "Tower 7, the voice repeated. "Do you copy?" I pressed the button. My voice came out calm. "Tower 7 here, all clear, no anomalies detected." Outside, the tree line shimmered faintly in the morning haze. Far in the distance, just for a second. Tower 12's light blinked once as if answering. Then the forest fell silent again, waiting.